Josh Brolin, very good actor. Elizabeth Olsen, good actor. Samuel L Jackson, legendary actor. In this movie, they're all okay. Welcome to Original vs. Reboot, the show where we take reboots and remakes and compare them to their original film. I'm Carl, and the film today is Oldboy. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 2003 Korean film Oldboy and comparing it to its 2013 American reboot. But down the years, a lot of people have told me the Korean version is great and the American version is goddamn awful. And before doing this movie comparison, I hadn't watched either film. I just watched the American one yesterday and the Korean one today. Sometimes on original versus reboot, I find it's the best way to do it. When someone tells you the original is fantastic and the reboot is terrible, I find it best to watch the reboot first and then watch the original, just so you're not tainted by the original being so good that you expect the same of the reboot. So I was hoping that the reboot would actually be okay and then I'd be blown away by the original. And to be honest, I didn't like either film. They were both fine, but they were both weird. And I like a certain level of weird. I did the whole video on why Three-Headed Shark Attack is the best movie ever. So I like some weird films. But Oldboy, they just kept it in the family too much. Of course, if you haven't seen either Oldboy, I'd recommend going and watch at least one of them before you check out this video, because there's gonna be spoilers throughout. So the original was directed by Chan-wook Park, whereas the 2013 reboot was directed by Spike Lee. Josh Brolin plays the lead character in the American reboot, and in the original, Min-sik Choi plays the role of Odae-soo. At the core of both films, the story is the same. A man who's a bit of an asshole is abducted, finds himself in a hotel-like prison room that he can't escape, and he's kept there for various years. In the original, it's 15 years. In the reboot, for some reason, they changed it to 20 years. Now, I know the original is based on a manga, but the reboot was actually based on the original film. They made that clear at the start with a little credit that says based on Korean film. At the core of both films, they're revenge films. Eventually, both lead characters get out. They find themselves in a box in a field. Ultimately, they come in contact with a man who gives them a mission to find out who he is and why he locked them up for so long. And that's what the whole film is about. And I'm not going to spoil the ending because I'm assuming you've seen either Oldboy or maybe both Oldboys and you know the ending is pretty fucking weird. Now, on original versus reboot, if you're brand new to this show where we compare reboots and remakes to their original film, generally we compare the story, we compare the acting, we compare the looks of the film, and we ultimately decide which is better. This is a tough one because while it's not a shot-for-shot reboot like something like Psycho, the story is more or less the exact same. In the Korean film, the first hour flies by, the pacing is frenetic, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, it keeps you guessing. At times it's a little rushed, but it works. In the American version, it's very slow and dragged out. Once Josh Brolin is brought into that hotel room like cell, they spend a lot of time in that cell explaining things and setting up things for the future. For example, we see more stuff on his TV, more news stuff that he gets about his wife's murder, about his daughter, all setting up for the future. He also has this weird thing with a mouse, which maybe is in the manga, I don't know, I never read it, but like he finds a mouse, becomes friends with the mouse ends up having mouse babies, and then ultimately the mouse babies are served to him as dinner. Also there's like he keeps getting bottles of vodka and getting drunk and then ultimately pours them down the toilet for some reason. Again, maybe it was in the manga, I don't know, it wasn't in the original film. The pacing of the original one, in the first hour in particular, is better. In the second hour is a little bit dragged out, especially towards the end, the final 20 minutes, I think it's very dragged out. The reboot, I think it's just trying so damn hard to be so many different things. At times you might even think this was directed by multiple people, not just Spike Lee, because there's different looks to the film, there's different styles to the film. There's stuff they tried to copy from the original in worse ways. For example, the scene where the main character ends up going back to the building he was caught in. In the reboot, he tortures Samuel L Jackson. In the original, he tortures the guy by pulling his teeth out. When he's leaving that, he ends up having this mega fight scene in both films. But in the original, they just do a pan across the set, and as they're panning across, he's beating more and more guys. And it is a bit comic booky, the fact that he's one guy taking on all these people with weapons and ultimately gets the better of all of them. And they're all kind of like hesitant going in, they're all one by one going after him instead of like all taking him on. At times they do actually take him on and he gets beaten down, he gets stabbed in the back. And it's a little more realistic than it is in the reboot, because in the reboot, they kind of make it almost like a video game where Josh Brolin comes in from one side and the other guys come in from the other side, and they face off, and then Josh Brolin one by one beats them up as they all take turns at getting beaten up, and ultimately he gets stabbed in the back, similar to the original. I think it was much better done in the original, but they were clearly trying to do it in the reboot. Another weird thing is in the reboot, when they're doing that panic cross, it's being shot through a chain link fence, but when they cut to the end of the fight and Josh Brolin's about to walk downstairs, the chain link fence is gone. Really fucking weird. In the reboot, they do spend more time filling out details and getting more information in there, and the ending's a slightly bit different because the bad guy ultimately reveals to him that he's set up a studio to make fake TV shows to show him, to feed information to his mind, whereas in the original they had hypnosis to bring the two people together and stuff like that, stuff that wasn't in the reboot. Looking at acting, Josh Brolin, very good actor. Elizabeth Olsen, good actor. Samuel L Jackson, legendary actor. In this movie, they're all okay. In the original film, I thought all the actors were pretty solid for the most part, the main actors at least. The characters are fine, the actors are fine in the reboot. The writing is a bit watery, and I don't know if there's just some stuff got lost in translation, but some stuff just doesn't make sense or is really kind of stupid. Like there's one scene where Samuel L Jackson has Josh Brolin on a table and he's about to torture him the same way that Josh Brolin tortured him earlier in the film. But he gets a phone call from the main bad guy who's like, don't do it. Samuel L Jackson says to him, there's nothing you can give me that will stop me from doing what I'm about to do. Something along those lines. And the guy tells him to go outside. So he agrees to go outside. He comes back in with a bag. He puts the bag on Josh Brolin's body and it's full of money. And he goes, okay, I won't do it. I'm paraphrasing here, it's loosely that. But basically, Samuel L Jackson said to him, there's nothing you can give me. The bad guy says, what about money? And Samuel L Jackson says, yes. So he gives up on it. In the original, again, there's the same torture scene where the same guy's about to torture the main character the same way he tortured him previously by pulling out his teeth with a hammer, which was gruesome. But again, the bad guy in the original does make the call, but when he stops the guy doesn't like, there's nothing you can give me. He just says, why are you calling, type of thing. And the guy appears at the door, gives him a briefcase full of money. The guy goes, cool. And it made more sense. But ultimately, as we do with every original versus reboot, we come down to the ultimate question of which is better. I don't think it'll be to anybody's surprise that I'm going with the original. As I stated already, story, acting, characters, writing, looks, it's all better. For a film that's 10 years older than the reboot. The reboot should be winning on some aspect, but simply doesn't. The whole point of original versus reboot when I started this show was to show that some reboots are better than originals, because reboots and remakes, they get a bad rap, especially from film fans. Some people think there's no good reboots and no good remakes, and Oldboy definitely proves that point to a lot of people, which is a huge shame. It's a terrible reboot, but there is some good reboots, as we've seen on original versus reboot. If you haven't seen them, check out the playlist. But let me know your opinions on Oldboy. The original, the reboot, which one did you think was better? Did you hate both of them? Did you love both of them? Maybe you think it's like me, you just find it way too weird of a story. So if you've liked today's video, please hit the like button just so that I know that you're watching. And of course, if you're new to movie film, please hit that subscribe button for new content every Wednesday and Friday. And maybe even check out some of the other content on the channel. We've got some videos over here for you to check out. With all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching.